Thank you, Chairman. I want to tell you a story this evening. A man who lived by himself decided that it would be a good thing to have a pet. He didn't want a normal pet, like a dog for a companion. He wanted something a bit out of the ordinary. So after a lengthy discussion at the pet shop, he finally came home with a centipede in a little box. He put the little box in a cosy corner of his living room and let his new little friend settle in for a while. And that evening, he thought it would be a good idea to get to know his little friend a bit better. So he thought, I know, I'll take him down the pub for a drink. So he got close to the centipede's little box and asked him, how about coming down the pub for a pint then? There was no answer from the centipede. He waited again a few minutes and he popped back again, asking, how about that drink then? There was still no answer. He waited a little bit longer, came back and got his face as close as he could to the little box with the centipede in it. Are you interested in coming down the pub for a pint with me or not? He shouted. Then a little voice came back from inside the box. It's all right. I heard you the first time. I'm just putting on my shoes. Patience, patience. You might need a lot of patience with a little friend like that. Patience. I guess there are always times when a lot of us could do with a little bit more of it. Patience. I imagine that also you too, as councillors, really need a lot of it, as you give so much of your time and so much of yourselves. It's been said that patience is not simply the ability to wait, it's how we behave while we're waiting. So, before I lead us in a short prayer, let's just pause and reflect for a moment on those areas where we might need some patience, asking ourselves these 4 questions. Where do I need patience with myself? Where do I need patience with others? Where do I need patience with circumstances? Where do I need patience with issues around the environment? So let us pray. Hear us, Lord, as we lift before you this meeting of our district council. Guide our council in all the deliberations of this meeting. Give our councillors the thoughtfulness and wisdom they need in all the decisions to be made. Give our councillors the patience and perseverance they need through this meeting and the patient work in each place represented here. May your good purposes be fulfilled among our communities to the glory of your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Stephen Bay. You may wish to stay or you can go if you wish. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Right, welcome everybody tonight. Firstly, we have 2 of our residents who have been awarded honours in the New Year's Honours. The first is Sarah Pickup from Hertford, who has been awarded a CBE for services to social care. Sarah Pickup is the Deputy Chief Executive of the Local Government Association, the LGA. Sarah previously worked for Hertfordshire County Council as Deputy Chief Executive, with responsibility for corporate services as well as being the county's Chief Finance Officer. Until her appointment to this role in May 2013, Sarah was Director of Health and Community Services in Hertfordshire, and she had held this role since 2003. Sarah is on the board of Hightown Housing Association, a trustee of the Nuffield Trust, a trustee of a local arts centre, and was an independent member of the Home Office Adult and Risk Assurance Committee for 4 years. She was president of the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services, the ADASS, in 2012-2013, and prior to this fulfilled a number of roles for the association. In 2014, she was awarded an OBE for services to social care. So Sarah, if you'd like to come up, we've got a certificate for you.
Well, just a couple of words to say thank you very much. I know some of you quite well from my 27 years working for the County Council. It's a really lovely to be invited to my local council and to have this certificate. It was most unexpected, as was the CBE actually. So, it's obviously, it is a great honour, the title befits it. And, I have had a long career in local government, but I've done a good job, as do, I'm sure, all your officers and all you as councillors. And, I am lucky to have been singled out for the work that I've done. But I thank you actually for all the work that you do every day, especially since I live here and I benefit from your services. Thank you very much for inviting me tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. You can stay if you want, or if you wish, you can go home now. The next award is for Professor Sunil Shulnak, also from Hertford, has been awarded an OBE for services to infectious diseases and drug discovery. Professor Shulnak is the Emeritus Professor of Infectious Diseases at Imperial College London. Over the past 40 years, he has developed cost-effective new medicines for hepatitis C, leishmaniasis, AIDS, and Shigella. I hope I've pronounced them correctly. As co-founder of the Imperial spin-out Polytherix, renamed Absena when it was listed on AMI, he expanded the work into antibody-drug conjugates. Professor Shulnak has championed the international public debate about the need for equitable global access to affordable medicines. These can be modelled on expensive drugs, but structurally modified to make them both patentable. He has 23 granted patents, and cost-effective as new medicines. So I'd like to invite Professor Sunil Shulnak up to collect a certificate from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. But you might be wondering why someone who works at Imperial College and Hammersmith Hospital is here in Hertford. And in fact, my wife is Dr. Anita Oates. And in 1990, Dr. John Bench from the Hanscom House Surgery on St. Andrew Street invited her to become a partner of practice. And at that time, the world was very different, really, because she got interviewed and I got interviewed as the doctor's wife because there were no mobile phones. And so when the doctor was out on a night call, because remember, you would bring the doctor at home and say, I've got an emergency and I need to be seen, and the doctor would decide. And if the doctor was out, the wife had to take the message. And they needed to make sure that I was diligent in taking messages. And the world has changed a lot since then. We came for 2 years and we're currently here for 32 years. And that's actually because Hertford and East Hert's a very nice place to live. So thank you very much for all the hard work you've done, because you've converted Londoners into East Hert's residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shulnak. I've only got a couple of other announcements to make because obviously we were here just 4 weeks ago. The first is the Holocaust Memorial event is next Thursday at 6:30 in this council chamber. So you're all welcome to that next Thursday, the 26th of January at 6:30. And just another reminder that I've got an afternoon garden party on the 15th of April. That's a Saturday. It's a free event. So please can you put this in your diaries? And I'll try and give you some more information probably at the next meeting we have in March. Okay, thank you. Leaders' announcements.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And I think once again, our two guests have just demonstrated the extraordinary quality and range of people who choose to live in East Herts. And I think we need to be very humble that we have such great people who live here and who make such a major contribution to us, but also across the nation. I'd like also, Chairman, if you don't mind, just to do something which is a little bit different, but it sort of carries on with the Hertford theme, really. So last night I had an email from a delightful resident from Hertford, who engages with me frequently, but in a very positive and an extremely nice way. And he's sent me an email and he's asked if I can share it, and the chairman has agreed that I can. So let me just read it word for word. Can the council recognise the joy that Clinton has brought to the Hertford community as he is leaving us at the end of next week? Who is Clinton? He is the gatekeeper for the Crudace housing development site, Blakemore Manor, adjacent to the Seal School Hall in Hertford. And I understand that he has got a big fan club on social media. The joy that he has brought to everyone is from him standing at the entrance, waving and smiling at everyone, be they driving, walking or cycling. And I see Councillor Brady and Councillor Redfern smiling, and Councillor Dumont, because we have all done it. So in return, drivers toot their horns and wave, from lorry drivers to families in cars, and pedestrians wave and exchange greetings. Today, a car stopped to drop off a belated Xmas present and card for him, apparently one of many. So instead of being the source of moaning and complaints, as many development sites attract, people talk about the joy of seeing Clinton. So we will miss him. I frequently drive past him and we wave, and it's a great experience, isn't it? It's just lovely. But I think his last comment about a lot of development sites only bring moans and whinges. And Clinton has made that difference to it being a really well-run, organised site. And it would be so nice if we could see that replicated across East Herts. So thank you very much, Chairman, for letting me read that out. It's a very local thing for Hertford, but it looks as though others drive past it for him frequently, and we will miss him. I can't remember where he's going. I think he's going over to Bradford, sorry? Nedworth. So there we go. That's my announcements, but I believe Councillor McAndrew would like to add something, if you may, Chairman.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It gives me great pleasure to announce that East Herts District Council's vehicle fleet has gone green with the replacement of all its diesel vans with a fleet of e-vehicles. The switch to the Nissan Leaf e-cars will reduce the council's carbon footprint by 9 tonnes of CO2 each year and cut leasing costs. The fleet consists of 5 Nissan Leaf e-vehicles, which will be used across East Herts by council officers involved in services such as fly tipping, enforcement, parks, inspections, and leisure initiatives. The move from diesel to electric vehicles is good news for the environment and part of our ongoing drive to be a net zero carbon council by 2030. It is also an effective use of financial resources at a time when budgets are under significant pressure. The vehicles are manufactured in the UK in Sunderland. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. I'm going to move on now to, sorry, is that the end of leaders' announcements? Thank you. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Alder, Councillor Beckett, Councillor Bell, Councillor Boylan, Councillor Cuttin, Councillor Ruth Buckmaster, Councillor Hollybon, Councillor McMullen, Councillor Rutland Barsby, Councillor Snowden, and Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Goldsmith.
Thank you, Chairman. Please could I also add Councillor Richard Townsend?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, and can I add Councillor Frecknell as well? He did.
What? He's behind you.
Hunter season's finished.
Right. Thank you. I think, is there any more apologies for absence? No, thank you. Right, we move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was only held, like I say, about 4 weeks ago, the 14th of December 2022. Members, we have before us the minutes for the meeting held on the 14th of December 2022. Are there any amendments to these minutes? Yes, Councillor Curtis. Sorry, I can't see. Councillor Curtis.
Oh, I was slightly offended there, Councillor Devonshire. I thought you'd forgotten that I existed for a minute. No. So just a quick point. I've got 2 quick points actually. Firstly, on page 408, regarding the this council's definition of anti-Semitism, the IHRA definition, I believe it was confirmed at last meeting that this council uses the full definition, including the examples. Can we please have that confirmed in the minutes that was the case? I believe it was clarified at the last meeting. And secondly, on page 413 of the agenda pack, page 14, yes, page 413. Is it 413? Apologies. That's too far for me. That's better. Yes. Regarding the, I've got the wrong page. I've written down the wrong page. Here we are, page 423. So it regards the Bengio field, the master plan. That it says in the minutes that I was aware of the campaign that green space should be retained, would not be voting on and deferring to local knowledge on this. That's slight inaccuracy. I did say I would be voting on it, but I said that I would draft the judgment of the ward members and vote in line with them, which I did.
Okay, thank you. Is that all okay? Yeah, thank you. Any more amendments to the minutes from the last meeting? No? Okay. So can we have, can I have a proposer, please, for those minutes with those amendments, please?
Happy to propose these minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Linda Hazy. Can we have a seconder, please, for those minutes from the last meeting? Councillor Buckmaster. So we've had the minutes proposed, seconded. There are those amendments. Can I have a show of hands for all those who are in favour, please? I think that's unanimous. Are there any against or any abstentions? Oh, is that against? Abstention. Thank you. So that is carried. The next item is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No, no declarations of interest. Next item is petitions. There are no petitions. Next item is public questions. No public questions have been submitted. So we go straight on to members' questions. 4 questions have been submitted tonight. May I remind members that both questioner and responding executive member must ensure that the question and the reply is succinct and the total time allowed for consideration of any questions submitted shall not exceed 15 minutes. Given the fact that we now publish the full responses the day after this meeting, short verbal responses are to be encouraged so that we may keep to this time limit. Any remaining questions not dealt with in this time will be responded to in writing before the next ordinary meeting of this council. All responses will be published on the website as soon as possible after the meeting. So I'm going to take the questions in the order they were submitted. So the first question is Councillor Joseph Dumont to ask Councillor Jane Goodeve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Goodeve, is this too close to me? Was that all right? The members of the neighbourhood planning group in my ward and also parish councillors have been working very hard and doing their best to develop the neighbourhood plan for Stansted Abbots. They have found it difficult, especially because it is being proposed that Greenbelt land is to be released. There is strong local feeling against a requirement to build 94 homes. Will the executive member tell me whether it is or is not the case that Stansted Abbots will be more susceptible to Greenbelt development, and if the quota of 94 homes can be more easily exceeded by developers if a neighbourhood plan is not adopted?
Thank you. Councillor Goodeve.
Thank you, Chairman. We recognise and commend the hard work that is underway to develop a neighbourhood plan for Stansted Abbots. In the East Herts District Plan, Group 1 villages are identified as the most sustainable villages in the district and are expected to accommodate growth as part of the housing strategy. The requirement for at least 94 new homes in Stansted Abbots and St Margaret's is set out in Policy Bill 1 of the District Plan. In accordance with the policy, if the housing requirement is not met by the adoption of a neighbourhood plan, the council will consider whether it is necessary to identify the site for development through a site allocations development plan. In this scenario, the parish council and the neighbourhood plan group would have less control in the allocation and design of the proposed sites. Without a neighbourhood plan, there is a potential for speculative development in the Greenbelt. Even if the council refuse an application, it could potentially be allowed on appeal if an inspector considers very special circumstances, particularly if weight is given to the argument that the district plan requirement for 94 homes in the village has not been met. There is also no certainty that 94 homes will not be exceeded, because the figure is not a limit, but a minimum requirement. The council would prefer development to be planned, so that the impacts on local infrastructure and character can be fully considered through the plan-making system. Allocation in a neighbourhood plan will ensure that the design and community benefits of any proposed scheme best reflect the ambitions of the local community.
Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. Councillor Dumont, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
I don't, only to thank the executive member for their long answer, and I agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. The next question is, can I invite Councillor Mynie Goldspink to ask her question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is to the leader of the council. What actions can East Herts Council take to demonstrate its support for asylum seekers and refugees who are seeking safety within our district?
I would like to thank Councillor Goldspink for her question. I believe that this council, and indeed the communities across our district, can be proud of how East Herts has come together in recent years to demonstrate support for those seeking refuge in our area. Since 2016, the council has worked with local housing associations and community groups, such as Herts Welcomes Refugees, to support 7 Syrian families settle in East Herts. The council has commissioned the Refugee Council to provide the necessary support. More recently, we have drawn on these same networks to provide homes to 4 Afghan families. So far, 3 families have settled here, and we are currently identifying a 4th suitable property. I know that Councillor Kay takes great care each year when leading the council's inclusive Holocaust Day commemorative event to recognise the often horrific circumstances that refugees and asylum seekers are fleeing from. And this will be demonstrated in our session of which the chairman has already mentioned on Thursday the 26th in this council chamber. Finally, let me turn to the council's response to the war in Ukraine. I find it quite humbling when I think about the number of local people who have opened their homes to Ukrainian people as part of the government's Homes Ukraine programme. The council has worked with Hertfordshire County Council every step of the way in this scheme. Of note, to date, our environmental health team has conducted 180 inspections of hosts' properties to ensure there are no major issues that would preclude them from taking them in almost 400 people. In fact, East Herts has the 2nd highest number of placements through the Homes for Ukraine programme in Hertfordshire. The inspection work is continuing, and furthermore, officers in the housing service are now working closely with colleagues across the county to provide high quality support and advice on housing options should a placement come to an end. May I remind you that the council's website includes a whole range of useful information for those coming to our district and residents wishing to support. So I hope I have been able to assure all members of East Herts Council and our residents that we continue to demonstrate practical support and advice for people seeking a place of safety in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Councillor Goldsmith, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I thank the leader very much for that response. Yes, and I'm glad that this council has helped very much with settling refugees and helping them. I wonder if it would be possible for this council to issue some sort of statement indicating support for asylum seekers as well. We do have lots of asylum seekers, very close certainly to Bishop Stortford and other parts of Hertfordshire. And I think these people are very frightened. They're human beings. It's a great shame that the Home Office is taking such a long time to process their applications, and they're just languishing in hotels. They'd love to work. They're not allowed to work. They're given a little bit of pocket money. So would it be possible for this council to issue a statement expressing support for these human beings who are fleeing terrible situations and are just seeking safety and a chance to work in our community? Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Hazy.
Thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Goldsmith. Perhaps if I may, I'd like to go back to some of my county council colleagues to see if there's a way that we can actually find appropriate wording.
Thank you. The next question is Councillor Chris Wilson to ask his question of Councillor Peter Boylan. Peter Boylan is not here tonight. Is there another executive member that can answer this question from Councillor Chris Wilson?
I think, Chairman, normally in these circumstances, we put the response up onto the website because obviously Councillor Boylan is the expert in this area and would be able to take any supplementaries. I have seen the response, but I don't think it's quite the same as just reading it out than actually having Councillor Boylan here to do that. And we have done that historically.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Is that okay, Councillor Chris Wilson?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So straight on to question 4, which is also Councillor Chris Wilson to ask Councillor Graham McAndrew.
Thank you. At the full council meeting on the 16th of November, one of my residents, Mr. James Dean, asked if the council would consider the adoption of a permit type system to discount parking after 6:30 p.m. for local residents who live near council operated car parks. Mr. Dean, along with some other nearby residents, have no other realistic place to park besides Crown Terrace car park. It was stated that this would be looked into by officers, but the new late parking charges have since been implemented and there's been no indication of whether such a scheme can be initiated. Can you please provide an update on what discussions and or decisions have been made so that Mr. Dean and other affected residents can be appropriately informed?
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson, for the advance warning of your question. We have a permit option that is available for Crown Terrace residents to allow them to park in the Crown Terrace car park. The traffic regulation order that provides the requisite authority defines eligibility criteria in respect of address, and currently the cost of each permit is £1,494 per year. The benefits of the permit scheme are that no daily payment is required, and therefore from a convenience perspective, this may be considered beneficial. In response to your request, I have discussed the matter with the parking services manager, who has advised me that there are discretionary powers to offer this car park permit type to your constituent on the existing terms. I appreciate this isn't a discounted rate, however, there is currently no authority for concessions. Alternatively, the London Road resident has other options to park near their home. We have looked into this, and there are several roads providing permitted parking on street that are available in the evenings and on Sunday. These roads provide adequate capacity for parking and are all within 5 minutes walk of the resident's address. As you will be aware, the council agreed to implement the evening and Sunday charges to ensure that those customers using the council's facilities contribute towards the cost of operating and maintaining the assets. Crown Terrace is a very popular car park serving a number of groups, including local businesses, workers, shoppers and residents.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, you said that there was no authority to offer discounts. Can I ask what that authority would be and how it would come about to get such authority? Is that something that's viable, or is that a very long or costly process?
I can look into that, but I'll look into it.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Moving on to the next item, it's the executive report from the 10th of January. This is on pages 35 to 118 of your agenda pack. This report relates to the meeting of the executive on the 10th of January 2023. May I invite the leader to present her report?
Thank you very much again, Chairman. There are two items which need to be considered and are recommended to council that went through the executive. The first one is the annual Treasury Management Review 2021-22, and I've asked Councillor Williamson to present that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Chairman. We are required to review our Treasury management annually in line with SIPFA's Codes of Practice. Thus, the report presented to the Executive on the 10th of January was our review for the last financial year. The review, which is contained within the agenda from page 39, was examined and accepted by the Audit and Governance Committee in November, and the recommendation on page 36 asks that the review is now given full council approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Pope.
Very happy to second that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder. Is there any discussion on this item, please? Councillor Goldspink.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd just like to say Liberal Democrats fully support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this item? No? Okay. So this is okay. This is the first item in the executive report on which there is a recommendation. The recommendation A is detailed on page 36. Do you wish me to read out this recommendation? It's quite a short one. So the recommendation is that the annual Treasury Management Review 2021-22 and the outturn prudential indicators be approved. Members, can I have a show of hands whether you are in favour of this item? Thank you. Are there any against? No, any abstentions? No, thank you. That is carried. I think that was unanimous. The next item is item 9B. Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. And this is a recommendation on the use of the UK Share Prosperity Fund that has been allocated to East Herts. There was a very detailed paper went through executive a couple of weeks ago, and I would commend everyone to look at it. Essentially, the UK Share Prosperity Fund replaces the various bits of money that we used to get from Europe. We have been allocated actually quite a useful sum of money, overall nearly over £1 million. But we do need to spend it over 3 years. We also need to make sure that we have had community engagement in the allocation of this fund, and that the MPs have also been involved in looking at what we've been doing. There is quite a time push on this one because the first tranche has to be spent by March 23. So the projects that have come forward are very much those which are, as I say, shovel ready. And they are a mix of revenue and of capital. So for the first year, we will be spending £215.186. We have decided and are recommending that actually the Share Prosperity Fund is based upon the projects that come out of the cultural strategy and also the climate change strategy, because they are both important policies that are part of our 4 seed aspirations. Chairman, if I may recommend that you don't read out the recommendations because they do cover basically a page, but there's A and B on page 36 and 37, and I recommend this to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rishi Fernando.
Happy to second this, Chairman.
Thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was very happy to support the recommendations at executive and again this evening. The leader has mentioned some of the allocations in there. The cultural strategy is really important to us. We already have a fully formed cultural strategy, and the early part of it will be to go forward with an asset mapping allocation across the district to see what's going on already. And then there'll be there's a fully formed delivery group who will then be, and a strategic group who will then be working with us to encourage groups to come forward for things that would improve the health and well-being of our residents. So and of course climate change very important to us, and town and village centre improvements, and of course the benefit to rural villages. So I think all of those are really admirable things to support. So I'm happy to support it this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. That's excellent news. Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the Liberal Democrats group does support all this, and I think the recommendations are very good. But I would just like to make a comment that I'm very surprised that it has taken such a long time for the Conservative government to put forward these grants and this allocation of money, because the Brexit vote was in 2016 and we're now in 2023. So I do think it's well, it's surprising it's taken them so long to come up with these recommendations. The other comment I'd like to make is that I'm very shocked that this council is required to make its decisions by the end of March. Again, this is a great rush. So what has our central government been thinking of? Yes, requiring us to make these decisions so quickly. I mean, I'm delighted that East Herts actually has some shovel-ready projects, and that is very good. And I do support all the recommendations as to how it should be spent. They're all very worthy causes and projects. But I'm just astonished that this has been handled in such a slow and maybe disorganized way. But anyway, the money is coming eventually. That is good.
Thank you,
Yes, I
Councillor
support the
Goldspink.
recommendations.
Councillor Curtis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, unlike Councillor Goldspink, I think it's quite good that decisions are being taken quickly. I think too often decisions in government all over the place are not taken quickly, and then there are costs associated with such delays. In terms of our proposed use of this funding, there's a lot to be celebrated in here. There's lots of great things that we're proposing to do. On business support, however, and business support is crucial, as are our town and village centres, and the other two items. But on business support specifically, the outcomes here will be measured largely in terms of jobs created, jobs safeguarded, but jobs created specifically, and that's obviously a number. But to create new jobs, to get that inwards investment, we can learn a lot from our Conservative colleagues in Harlow, in Broxbourne, regarding allocating the allocation of land for new businesses to come in to create those jobs, and also in terms of speeding up our process of determining planning applications, so that businesses that are looking to invest in East Hertfordshire know that they will not have to wait too long to get going with opening up a new premises in our district. So I hope that as this plan is delivered over, these funds are spent over the course of the next council term, where I will no longer be here, I hope that these issues of having that land available for businesses to move into or move on to, and that the speed of the permission process for any planning applications associated with that are minimised. I hope those issues are looked into during the next term, and I hope that lessons are learned from colleagues in Broxbourne, in Harlow and elsewhere in how energy and dynamism in attracting in such inwards investment can be mustered, and how that can be used to the advantage of the district which we serve here.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Redfern, please.
I apologise. I'm not going to ask a question after all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Chairman. And, I welcome the fact that we at East Herts have got one of the highest allocations in the country. And I think that's really good indeed. Councillor Goldspink mentioned about having to rush to spend the money, but that's just for this year's allocation. I think it's £213,000. There are another 2 financial years to come where that can be more considered, and we can look at all the various projects that are available, I think up to a total of £1.7 million. This should benefit our smaller towns. It should benefit, as Councillor Buckmaster said, our villages. Councillor Goldsmith made reference to the Brexit vote, yes, but of course we didn't leave the European Union when the vote took place. It took a few years to come to fruition, and we've had money spent in the area through the EU up until quite recently, and I suppose that's why things have worked so slowly. But this actually complements the sort of business support programs, as Councillor Buckmaster said, the cultural strategy, and also the climate change strategy as well. So I think this is very encouraging. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gay. Councillor Crystal, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, this is very, very welcome funding. It's good news for the district. And I wanted to actually myself and James would want to thank the officers involved for the hard work putting in the bids, which is obviously really important. I've got a question, if that's okay. So in the Appendix B references a amount of funding going into the measurements of footfall in town centres. We used to get that information during the year, I think before COVID. I wondered, as part of this, whether we will start getting sort of regular reports on footfall for our respective town centres. Because I think that would be very handy for all of us in being able to monitor the impact of the spending.
Thank you. Is there any executive member can answer that? Yes,
I'm
Councillor
happy to
Goody.
take that one, Chairman. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
absolutely can provide that data. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Goody. Councillor Deering, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid I just want to say that I think Councillor Goldspink's comments are extraordinarily churlish and political. We should be very thankful. This is a substantial amount of money that's coming our way. It's to the credit of this administration that we're receiving so much. And since Councillor Goldspeak has chosen to make a political point, it's greatly to the credit of the Conservative government that we're getting all this money. And thank you, Councillor Crystal, for your graciousness in acknowledging that this is good news. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Councillor Chris Wilson, please.
Thank you. Like everyone else, I excuse me, I welcome this funding and very pleased it's happening. I'd like to particularly welcome the suggestion of funding being given to Stortford Pride and other East Herts Pride events. Having spent a lot of time talking with the LGBTQ community, it's clear they felt neglected, unsafe and invisible in our district. And I hope this goes some way to changing this and showing that we are welcoming and accepting of people. And they can be who they truly are with no fear or favour in our communities. I also have a question. There has been an overall reduction on a national level of 40% from the amount given to the UK by the EU structural funds to that provided by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So I'm not sure I agree with Councillor Deering that we should be all that grateful. Can Councillor Hazy or someone else advise if they know how the two sources of funding compare for this district?
Councillor Hazy.
I can't, I'm afraid, Councillor Wilson. I can try and find out for you, but I used to chair the ESIF committee for LEP. And I think this is actually, I think one of the advantages of this is that actually it's relatively simple to administer. And it's fairly easy for us to pick our own projects and for us to monitor what is needed. When I was involved with the LEP and the ESIF committee, it is a minefield of paperwork and assessment, etc. So this has certainly got rid of a lot of the bureaucracy. I think it's also difficult to know what we are able also within certain criteria to set the projects that we want to do. So therefore, if you look at the ESIF money, again, it tended to be for much bigger you know, the bypass around Much Had, around,
Little Hannah.
yeah, going into Bishop Stortford was basically European and let money. The 602 again. So they tended to be bigger infrastructure projects. But if you want me to, I can certainly go back to the LEP and see if there's a way that we can see how it would have possibly been allocated. And also, I know that when we were looking at projects, we were up against everybody else in Hertfordshire for projects. And also Bays was also involved in the allocation of the funding. So I think this is a lot easier and we are in control of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Councillor Chris Wilson, are you happy with that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although the final announcement of the Shared Prosperity Fund is relatively recent, it's been on the horizon for some time. I think the council is to be commended that it has planned in advance for projects that could fall under it, and it hasn't therefore been a last-minute rush to find them. And also noting Councillor Curtis's point about land for business and employment use, I think the council is to be commended that since 2018 it's had a fully adopted district plan that sets aside areas for business and employment use.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Are there any more questions or comments? No? Okay, so we'll move on. There are 3 recommendations, A, B and C, which are detailed on pages 36 and 37 of your agenda pack. I'm more than happy to read it out if you want me to, but it's quite long. Does anybody want it read out? No, okay. So we'll go straight to the vote, please. All those in favour of the 3 recommendations, please. Thank you. Are there any against? And any abstentions? No, that was unanimous then. Thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you. The next item is item 10, which is the Bishop Stortford Town Council Cemetery Bill. It's on pages 119 to 145 of your agenda pack. And I would like to invite the ward member, Councillor John Wiley, to present this report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to introduce this short paper in my capacity as a local ward member for Bishop Stortford. As you will see in the summary section of this paper, the council resolved to promote a private bill to enable the reuse of burial space in 2 cemeteries in Bishop Stortford on the 16th of November 2022. There is a statutory requirement for the council to now confirm that resolution, and that this report seeks that confirmation. In order to promote the bill, a resolution needs to be passed by a majority of the whole number of the members of the authority, and this council is asked to approve the recommendations in section A of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Can I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Ward Booth.
I'm happy to second, Mr. Chairman. This private bill will enable a much needed expansion of cemetery space in Bishop Stortford, and with the news that the additional powers will provide a supply of graves for at least the next century, it'll even see me happily buried. So I'm happy to second the paper.
Thank you. So that item has been proposed and seconded. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman. Though I sympathise with the challenge faced by Bishop Stortford Town Council and indeed by other parish and town councils across the country in terms of not having enough cemetery space, but well, for personal reasons, for religious reasons, I won't be able to vote in favour of this because I object to the reuse of graves. But I understand I'm likely to be in the minority here, but I don't want to see any parish or town council or any public body for that matter given the power to disturb human remains or to remove people's graves.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. There is only one recommendation, recommendation A on page 119 of the agenda pack. I can read it out because it's quite a short one. The recommendation is to confirm that the resolution for the promotion of the bill entitled the Bishop Stortford Cemetery Bill, which has been deposited in Parliament pursuant to the resolution of this council, passed at a meeting held on Wednesday the 16th of November 2022, be and is by this resolution confirmed. Members, can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in favour of this recommendation? Thank you. Any against? That's 1. And any abstentions? It's 1 against, so that is carried. Thank you very much, members. The next item is the Millstream 30-year business plan, 2023-2024. Now, I want you all to note that Appendix A, which is the pink papers in your agenda pack, is exempt. So if any members wish to discuss the detail of the accounts, this meeting will need to move into part 2 in the webcast pause. So you need to let me know if that is the case. I'm going to invite the Executive Member for Financial Sustainability, Councillor Jeff Williamson, to present this report.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Well, by way of introduction, our property investment company Millstream was established formally in February 2018, so this current year has been its 5th year of trading. The company is required to update its business plan each year, and we as the company shareholder are required to formally approve it. Therefore, if I may, Chairman, I'd like to now invite Jonathan Gill as a director of the company to present the business plan for 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Jonathan.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. I appreciate that it is unusual, very unusual for an officer to speak to a report to council. And I would like to make it clear that I'm doing this not as a council officer, as it were, but in my capacity as one of the directors of Millstream, the property company, wholly owned, but a separate company of the council. And I speak on behalf of my 2 fellow directors, Helen Standen and Chris Smith. The council, as the sole shareholder of the company, requires that a business plan is brought to council each year for approval. And each year, the business plan is refreshed based on a rolling 30-year lifespan, with the following year being year 1 of those 30 years. And so in this case, 2023-24 becomes year 1. I'd like to assure members that the company has met the deadline within the shareholder agreement set between the company and the council to have provided a draft of the plan to the shareholder advisory group and the appropriate officers by 31st of October last year. I would like to take this opportunity as well to add that the 3 elected members on the shareholder advisory group, and that is Councillors Bob Deering, Ian Devonshire and Jan Goodeve, have provided and continue to provide the appropriate and extremely valuable checking and scrutinising role as assigned the group under the shareholder agreement. As mentioned last year, since inception of the company in 2018, there have been a number of significant changes, largely around the national financial environment, as to how the council can fund capital expenditure. And that those changes taken together and considered by the directors and the council's head of strategic finance and property have identified that the previous financial model that allowed the company to buy or even consider building properties is no longer viable. And the details of that are in the business plan itself. Members will have noted in the business plan members will have noted that the business plan makes reference to the potential in the coming year of disposal, the potential disposal of 3 properties and the possible acquisition of a property owned by the council but already managed by Millstream. And the reasons for that are discussed in the exempt appendix, the business plan. That said, the property management remains viable, and Millstream is able and continues to be able to maximise the income to its shareholder, that is East Herts Council, to maximise the income in as tax efficient way as possible by providing a cash flow to the council from interest on the existing loans extended by the council to the company, payments for council officers' time spent on Millstream business at cost recovery plus 5%, and indeed dividends on surpluses. I would like, as a director of the company, to recommend approval of Millstream's 23-24 30-year business plan. But first, I would like to hand back to Councillor Jeff Williamson. Thank you.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. So, Chairman, following the Director's presentation, there are a few points I would like to emphasise. As mentioned, Millstream has been operating for nearly 5 years now, and each year Millstream provides much needed income to the council, which is built into our budget. This year, the income which is supporting our MTFP will be in excess of £160,000. This is derived from the provision of a mix of 2 and 3 bedroomed homes with rents at the lower end of the private rental market. In fact, some of the rents are around or in some cases below the local housing allowance, bringing them within reach of local people struggling to rent in the district's relatively expensive housing market. Thus, Millstream is a win-win proposition. Local people benefit from the high quality homes at reasonable rents, while the council receives much needed income. With regard to this revenue, when setting up the company, the council did take expert legal and financial advice on how best to maximise income in the most tax efficient way. Thus, the council gains an income stream from firstly interest payments on the loans it makes to the company, secondly charges for staff time at a profit, and thirdly dividends from any surpluses. As I explained last year, national changes in financial regulations mean that Millstream now operates in a steady state. That is, it continues to manage its existing stock without acquiring new properties. I'm aware that in 2023-24, the company will be considering disposing of 3 properties for reasons discussed in the exempt appendix. However, all members can be assured that Millstream can continue to provide a healthy income to the council as detailed in the business plan. Therefore, Chairman, I recommend to the Council approval of Millstream's 2023-24 business plan, and to that end, we have the one recommendation on page 146 of the report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Yes, Councillor Bob Deering.
Yep, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Jonathan and Jeff. I'm very happy to second this. Millstream is a very soundly run business. It's steady and it does what it was set up to do, which is generate a reliable income for the council. I'm very happy to second this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, Councillor Pope.
Thank you. Adverse inflationary movements have been identified as a risk to the business. Can the directors confirm that the level of projected inflation and also the level of bad debts contained in the business plan are appropriate?
Jonathan.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Yes, each year we, the directors, model what we call a downside budget projection, where we take a range of adverse factors, those being heightened inflation, higher cost of repairs and such like, and feed them through within the business plan. And again, it's in the exempt report, but speaking in general, there is an exemplification of what happens if there is far higher inflation, and the downside sensitivity we have already built in the high inflation at the moment, and in the downside sensitivity we extend that for a number of years, and it models the effect. It reduces some of the projected forecasts, but it remains a viable business. And so the directors feel confident that we've been able to model heightened inflation and some other adverse movements, such as you say, bad debt provision, for example.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Pope, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crystal.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's very interesting. I just wondered a far less technical question. Are there any solar panels fitted to any of the properties? And if not, are there plans to do so?
Jonathan, can you answer that?
Thank you. At present, there are not any solar panels fitted. What we do as Millstream do, when we have any improvement works, we seek to improve the energy performance rating, the certificate, the EPC, by virtue of things that we have done are at present, albeit gas boilers, more efficient gas boilers, a far greater insulation. I think as time goes on, and as we have built in certain stages over that 30-year period, improvement works, I think as time progresses, we will be looking at the viability of such improvements as PV or indeed other energy efficient measures.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does any other member wish to comment or ask a question? No? Okay. So we can go straight to the vote. Do you want me to read out the recommendation? The recommendation is that Millstream Property Investment Limited's 2023-2024 30-year business plan presented in the exempt Appendix A be approved. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you're in favour of this? Thank you. Is there anybody against? There is one against. And are there any exemptions, please? That's two. So that is carried. Thank you very much, members. The next item is the protocol for the submission of planning application representations. This is on pages 182 to 192 of your agenda pack. I'd like to invite the Executive Member for Planning and Growth, Councillor Jane Goodeve, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. The protocol I am proposing be adopted is with regard to the receipt of representations in relation to planning applications that are being dealt with by the Council's Development Management Committee. The reason why I am proposing this to Council is to ensure that the DMC continues to operate in an efficient manner and to avoid delays in application decision making. As members will know, it is a requirement that, when dealing with planning applications, the decision maker takes into account all representations received prior to a decision being made, where they are relevant. In most cases, representations are made and received during the publicised notification period for applications. Officers are able to consider the representations in full and formulate their report for the DMC, the decision maker taking them into account. Frequently, however, further representations are received after the committee reports are published, and officers will consider these and provide further advice to members in a late representation summary paper, published immediately before the committee meeting. Occasionally, representations are received that are either so substantive or received so close to the date and time of the committee that it is difficult for officers to consider these fully and provide advice accordingly to members. This can have the result that the DMC meetings either need to be adjourned or even reconvened, which results in a delay to decision making. To avoid this, I am proposing that the Council adopt a position through this protocol that all representations should be received at the latest by 5 p.m, 3 working days in advance of the relevant DMC. So for our DMC usually convened on a Wednesday, this will require submission by the previous Friday at 5 o'clock. The deadline would be adjusted accordingly when the committee is held on a different day, or there are intervening public holidays. This enables a period of 2 full working days before the day of the committee for officers to consider representations and advise members of the committee accordingly. The timescale is required as officers will often need to draw on advice of other external specialists to be able to advise the committee. There is no intention to seek to curtail the legitimate rights that all stakeholders have to submit representations on planning applications. This protocol seeks to encourage all interested parties to act in a reasonable way so that the committee can be fully advised and operate efficiently, minimising delays to decision making. I recommend that Council adopt the protocol as set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Andrew Huggins.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We've just heard there for the importance to have a transparent and fair yet structured approach to receiving submissions, and I'm happy to submit this, second this report.
Thank you, Councillor Huggins. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I fully support the ideas behind this proposal. I would, however, like to propose an amendment to the timing for the representations. I'd like to propose an amendment on page 190 in Appendix 1, a proposed amendment to the proposed protocol in number 2, lines 4 and 5. I'd like to have the words should be received by the council not later than 5 p.m. on the third working day prior to, replace that with should be received by the council not later than midnight on the Sunday before the DMC meeting on the Wednesday. That is my
Thank you,
proposed
Councillor.
amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspring. Can I have a seconder for that amendment, please? Yes, Councillor Dumont.
Yeah.
Councillor Dumont seconds that. Right, does any member wish to raise a question on the amendment, please? Councillor Goodeve.
I would like to point out that the addition of a Sunday deadline would not be transferable to situations where the DMC is not held on a Wednesday. An example of that would be the DMC that is proposed in a few weeks' time on a Tuesday, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning. That would not give officers adequate time to consider any complex late representations which may need external legal advice.
Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. Are there any more comments on the amendment, please? Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't agree with the amendment because having spoken at some of the strategic meetings and witnessed many of them, I just know the substantial work that officers and members have, and some things come in very late and really difficult in terms of timing to take on board the meaning and to receive the advice. I do understand it's not a huge difference that Councillor Goldspink is suggesting, but as Councillor Goodeve suggested, there are circumstances where that just wouldn't work. And I think to give enough time for officers and members to consider the matters coming forward and give advice, I think is the really important matter here. So I will be supporting the original recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. Councillor Deering.
Thank you, Chairman. As some members in the room will know, I've been the chairman of the planning committee for a number of years now, succeeding Tim, who was an excellent chairman before me. I'm completely supportive of Councillor Goodeve's motion, and I'm not supportive of the proposed amendment put forward by Councillor Goldspink. It's absolutely crucial that officers have enough time properly to consider the representations that come forward, and in turn that they have enough time to advise and guide members. Every member of the DMC who's in this room right now will know that when representations come in late, it's very difficult to deal with. And the proposal put forward by Councillor Goodeve is an eminently sensible and reasonable proposal that's designed to make sure that we get the best advice we can from officers. And of course, I would agree with Councillor Goodeve's response to Councillor Goldspink's proposed amendment, which is that a deadline of midnight on a Sunday just doesn't really help at all, because we might have a DMC on a Tuesday. And I think also, with complete respect to the point, Councillor Goldspink's proposed deadline also assumes that officers don't ever work at a weekend. We have an excellent cadre of officers in the planning department. We all know they've been under pressure for a very long time, but I'm absolutely sure that if needs be, they would look at papers over a weekend. They don't have that possibility if papers don't arrive until midnight on the Sunday. So I'm completely supportive of the motion that's put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Any more comments on the amendment? Yes, Councillor Crofton.
I am supportive of the original proposal as it stands, but can you just answer this? I thought when you get a planning application, there is a deadline date already on that application. So are you saying that those dates aren't working? So why do we need to have a formalized alternative? But I would also mention that you're talking about stakeholders and about valuing their opinions. That's true. And I'd like very much to consider for future things that more weight is given to members' opinions, because the local member has local knowledge. And that's irrelevant to this particular debate, but I would put that out there, that I think local members should have more influence in decision making. But I do support the original proposal for 5 working days.
Councillor Goodall, do you wish to respond to that?
I just wanted to remind members that as the local member of an application in their ward that comes to DMC, they in theory have an unlimited amount of time available to speak at the meeting, although their colleagues may not welcome that.
Thank you. Are there any more? I will come back to Councillor Goldspring. Are there any more comments before we? Yes, Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. I'd like to return to Councillor Crofton's original question as to explain exactly why this is necessary and what the circumstances are in which late representations can be submitted, and noting what it says about under the legal about the adoption of the protocol will not have effect in barring, I think that should be barring rather than bearing, late representations that are legally permitted to be made. But it at least discourages the making of such late representations. Certainly, I think the idea of this is absolutely right, and we all know the disruption that has been caused by late representations. How effective will it be, and how much will it be able to stop things?
Councillor Goodall, do you want to respond to that?
I think Councillor Kemp is quite right, of course. This does not prevent late representations being made, but it sends quite a strong message as to how we would like things to be. Legally, we have to accept late representations. I think, unfortunately, I would even suspect that some people are using complex late representations as an attempt to frustrate an application or delay its decision being made.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before I come back to Councillor Goldspring? Right, I'm going to come back to Councillor Goldspring as she made the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I hear everything that's been said, and yes, and I do respect the planning officers, and I acknowledge the huge amount of work which they do. I think these late representations arise in response to the officers' initial report and recommendations. And if those are only published on Wednesday, 1 week before the meeting, there's not a great deal of time for people who want to respond to the officers' recommendations in which to get in their late representation. And I would point out, if the deadline is midnight on the Sunday, the officers do still have 2 clear working days in which to formulate their response and give advice to DMC members. So I still think it would be fairer to people who want to make responses to the officers' recommendations on the planning committee. It would give them more time to formulate their comment and their late representation. So I still think it would get a better balance between the recommendation and the right of people to make objections. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, members. We have an amendment that has been moved. It's been seconded, so we need to vote on the amendment first of all. Councillor Curtis, I think you're too late because we've already gone back to the proposal of the motion. Can we have a vote on the amendment, please? Does anybody want me to read out what the amendment is? Or are you all clear on it? Does anybody want the amendment read out? No? Okay. Can we have a vote on the amendment, please? All those in favour of the amended motion, please. Those in favour of the amendment. Okay. All those against the amendment. Thank you. So the amendment has failed. So we go back to the original. Oh, sorry, abstentions. Are there any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So the amendment has failed. So we're going to go back to the original proposal. Oh, got some questions, have we? So we're going to go back to some questions on the original proposal, which was made by Councillor Goodeve. Councillor Ben Crystal.
Thanks, Chair. I just wondered whether, so the officers' report would be published as usual on the Wednesday. So in effect, we're reducing the amount of time that that people have before they put in a comment. Would you consider extending the amount of time, bringing the officers' report forward by 2 or 3 days to match, which would then allow, I just think in terms of giving residents a fair access to the officer's report, it would seem that I think we'd probably all, there may be technical reasons why we can't do it, but I think that would be it would be a good thing for local democracy to give people a little bit more time of viewing the officer's report. I mean, I think the overall idea of the motion is sound, and we do want to try and reduce that problematic last minute submission. But at the front end, I think moving the officer's report a little bit earlier would seem wise.
Councillor Goodeve, do you want to respond to that?
It's not really residents' comments that are presenting us with challenges. It is letters from legal firms. I think I need to ask advice here from James as to whether or not the date of publication of the officer report for planning applications can be moved. It doesn't actually help with the issue, in my opinion.
The statutory deadlines for reports, for publishing reports, are set down by statutes, as I might say in that. So I'll start again. When reports need to be published, are set down by statute. Therefore, it would not be for the council to intervene in that statutory process and set new deadlines for when reports are to be published. We are bound to stick by what the statutory deadlines say. So we moving when officer reports are to be published would not be within the power of this council to do.
Thank you, James. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have residents in my ward that wait for very long periods of time just to get decisions on home extensions, etc. So if we had Councillor Goldsping's way, I don't know how many months or years she wants for people to put the comments in after a report has already been formulated by officers and after the consultation period has already ended before making that decision. I mean, I don't know how much time we would have. We have to take decisions at some point. Councillor Goodeve has quite rightly outlined the issue that we're facing with legal firms putting in letters as a. I mean, I suspect that often that's just so the decision-making meeting gets delayed. That's bad faith. These things go out for consultation for a set period of time. The committee meeting dates are often many months after the date of the first advertisement of a planning application, and after that period of consultation is opened. I don't think we should be taking longer than we already are to make decisions on planning applications. I welcome what Councillor Goodeve is proposing as a way of helping to bring some of the delays we've been seeing down. So thank you for that, Councillor Goodeve. It's certainly appreciated in Amwell, and I'll be voting for this as a consequence.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Deering, please.
Thank you for letting me come back, Chairman. Just to, if I might take Councillor Crystal's point, I think everybody in the room takes a sentiment of your observation there, Ben. But I think it's worth reminding ourselves that the planning process isn't a responsive process. Notification of an application goes out in, as we all know, a long time, almost part of what Councillor Curtis has just said, before the decision is made. If people have objections, they have objections, and those objections don't need to be responsive to what the officer's report is. So take the sentiment of your remark, but my response to your remark would be that we do not need to change the point at which the officer's report goes out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Councillor Hazy.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps I can just confirm that. I think you are all well aware of some of those extraordinarily lengthy legal letters that have come in on some of our strategic sites. And I can pretty sure that they weren't put together as once the report had been put together, they were there in the making many months beforehand. So I think that's what we are trying to ensure, that these long legal arguments, which are basically there to delay or put off the application going through DMC, is not there. And in any case, if you are looking for a permission to build an extension or whatever, most of that is through delegated officer powers, so it doesn't actually, is not impinged upon this decision on time available.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. I'm just going to bring in James Ellis now, Head of Legal and Democratic Services.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, it's just been pointed out to me. Paragraph 2.2 of the proposal, page 186. You may have seen myself and the head of finance up here using our fingers to count. We've just been trying to figure out 3 days, working days prior to the committee. The parentheses say not including the day of the committee. And we're saying that obviously most DMCs are held on a Wednesday. So 3 working days before the date of the meeting would, by my counting, be a Thursday. So the Thursday, Wednesday being 1 working day, Monday being another, Tuesday being another, and then the Wednesday being when the committee is held, if that makes sense. Therefore, I would suggest that perhaps that paragraph 2 needs the Friday to be amended to a Thursday. So on most occasions, this would require submission by 5 p.m. on the previous Thursday. I'm happy to be challenged on my arithmetic around counting working days. But the parentheses in particular say not including the day of the committee, and obviously we're saying that most DMC meetings take place on a Wednesday. Therefore, just I put that out there as a potential slight anomaly on paragraph 2.2 as to how that would be calculated. I see Councillor Buckmaster.
Yeah, Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you. That's made me think. I'm also concerned at shortening the period from when the report is released and the number of days that people then have to submit. So I'm wondering whether that's not what we change, that actually we change the number of days prior to the meeting, rather so that it is the Friday rather than the Thursday.
Yeah. So that will now read the Friday before, which will be 2 working days, not including the committee day. Does that require an amendment? Okay, right.
So I'm being advised by the head of finance, who you would hope is better at arithmetic than myself, who is assuring me that as it's put down at 2.2 is actually the correct working out of 3 working days, and it should remain as is apparently. So feel free to completely disregard everything I've said. If you would like some further clarification around how those 3 days are calculated, I'm sure our resident accountant will happily step in and give you that.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, when we speak about 3 working days, when is the cut-off point on a working day for the officer to process? Is it midday? Is it 4 o'clock? Is it 5 p.m.? Is it?
Yeah, in the paper it says 5 p.m. obviously, but
5 p.m. on the Friday.
Yeah, I shall hand over to my more mathematically gifted colleague.
If members read this as 5 p.m. on the 3rd working day prior to the date of the committee, if the committee is on a Wednesday, Tuesday is the 1st working day, Monday is the 2nd working day, and the 3rd working day would be Friday. Therefore, the paragraph is somewhat vague. I'd say it needs to be slightly tightened up, because it's at 5 p.m. on the 3rd working day will be the Friday. You're assuming, because if you say the 3rd working day, 5 p.m. on the 3rd working day, then it's Friday. If you're saying 3 clear working days prior to the committee, not including the date of the committee, that would be the Thursday. So I would argue, as written, it would be Friday.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Crystal. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate, and I do understand there are good reasons for doing this. And I take your point, Bob. I think that the problem I think I still have is that it's for residents, it's how they perceive their opportunities and how those lengths of time are perceived. They may not necessarily be correct in understanding that the time is being reduced, but that worries me. That's my concern.
Thank you. Councillor Redfern.
Councillor Goodeve did say that we're going to have one of these meetings during the day. So the cut-off for that for that particular meeting would definitely be the Thursday, wouldn't it? Because of 3 working days, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday is Wednesday morning. Sorry.
Am I right in saying, Councillor Goodeve, that the 3 working days is the most important bit? It's not the actual day, it's 3 working days before the meeting.
It is.
Yes.
But also, let's not forget that these applications have been out for consultation for many, many weeks in advance, prior to the officer's report having been written.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont.
Thank you. I'm glad we cleared that up. So I think what we're speaking about residents, but I think as Councillor Goodeve says, is quite often actors who are a bit more strategically placing these objections. I think we did touch on it when we spoke about the amendment, but I wouldn't just mind a bit of clarification if you'll allow me. What is the legal status of what we're doing in terms of, because they are law firms, as you said, who are going to understand the law very well, how enforceable is what we're doing? And therefore, is it worth it?
My understanding is that this is a protocol. This is how we would like to operate. We cannot refuse to accept late representations, but in order to give our colleagues who are members of the DMC the opportunity to have proper time to read this stuff, which is really complex. At the recent meeting, considering the bridge crossings for Gilston, complex legal documents came in at very short notice. Consequently, the meeting had to be adjourned so that members could read those documents. They didn't have the opportunity to read, perhaps read it again, think about it. It was read it, get back in the meeting and be in decision-making mode. To my mind, that is not fair on our members. So this is setting out our stall to say, this is how we would like things to be. We want to operate in a fair manner, but we also need to be fair to our members as well, who are trying to do their best for their residents and for this authority.
Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. I would also add to our officers as well, not just our members. Councillor Drake, please.
Thank you. I don't wish to make this go on for any longer than it needs to, but just to come back to a point that was made about the time of the meeting being 11 a.m. in a few weeks, that's irrelevant if the wording is as it stands. It says not including the day of the committee. So the working days are working days prior to the day of the committee. So if it was held at 8 a.m, it's still irrelevant. The 5 p.m. would still stand.
Councillor Deering, did you have another point to make?
Yes, I'm going to apologise because I did say last time I wouldn't come back, but I'm sorry. I think the key thing is that the formula is working days. So I completely agree with Councillor Drake there. And if I might venture in response to your comment, I'm pretty sure this would not be rigidly enforceable, but it goes to natural justice. It's very, very difficult to shut out submissions that come in very late in the day, but this will help us defend a position if it's ever argued against us that a very late submission wasn't properly considered or wasn't properly dealt with. We can hold this up and we can say, well, we did ask you to get your submission in by a certain time and you didn't do that. So it goes to the balance of natural justice, I would venture to suggest, and it is therefore worth doing.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Are there any other questions from any members?
Sorry, just to come back as he's referenced me, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay,
Ask the question and it's been answered. So.
Thank you. Councillor Stowe, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to say, I mean, it's not legal, and quite frankly, some of the submissions we've had on some of the important jobs, I don't believe it'll make a blind bit of difference because they do it as a tactic and they're not going to listen really, are they? But I mean, I agree we should do something and let them know how we feel. But I think the people that really mean it in mischief, and some of them do, especially the legal beagles that do it, they won't change.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? No? Okay. Members, there are two recommendations, A and B. They're on pages 182 and 183 of your agenda pack. Do you want me to read out those recommendations? I will anyway. Right, recommendation is recommendation A is that the council adopt a protocol in relation to the submission of representations regarding planning and other related applications that are due to be reported to the Development Management Committee as set out in Appendix 1 to this report. And recommendation B is that delegation be given to the Head of Planning and Building Control in consultation with the Executive Member for Planning and Growth to revise and amend the detailed wording of the protocol as set out in Appendix 1 to this report prior to its publication. So members, can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in favour of this recommendation? I think that's unanimous. Are there any against? And any abstentions? Oh, there is one abstention. One abstention. Thank you. That is carried. Thank you, members. Right, the next item we move on to is item 13, the review of councillor complaints handling procedure. And I invite the chairman of the Standards Committee, Councillor Tony Stowe, to present this report.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a very important document and well prepared by our officers. The last time this complaint procedure was looked at was 2011, and there's many things in it was pointed out to us that needed to change. I mean, most of our complaints we get, I understand, are really from town and parish councils, and I think one of the things here you would have read is that we're trying to encourage local agreement to try and solve some of these things before they get to the monitoring officer. I know it doesn't exclude them from coming onto the monitoring officer, but it might help them try and solve some of these things at local level, which would help. So I propose this to the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? I'll have several seconders. Councillor Crofton, you're happy to second it. Do you want to say a few words?
No, Chairman, I think, I don't know if I've stood on somebody's toes there, but the answer is yes, I do second this. I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. So we have a proposer and we have a seconder. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question on this item? Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Liberal Democrat Group is very happy to support this. Do have one little comment about relating to Appendix A, the comments from the Standards Committee. And this is on Appendix A, 1, 2, 3. It's the third comment. This was once the complaints assessment criteria, point 3 should be amended to include the words, the councillor was not acting in their capacity as a councillor at the time of the alleged incident. They want to put those extra words in. Basically support them, but just hope that they could not be used as an excuse. If somebody has not behaved appropriately, they could say that, well, I wasn't being a councillor at the time. So just be a little bit wary of that, because I think we all expect that all councillors should always behave properly and courteously and not bring the council into disrepute. So I do support the main recommendations, but just have that as a little thought about that.
Okay.
Third recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Hazy.
Yes, thank you. I also welcome this, and I think it's extremely important, given the debate that we had last time in council, that we all behave appropriately to our residents, but also to ourselves and to our officers. I would suggest that, given the nature of some of the complaints that do seem to be put forward and which are largely rejected, that we go to the Association of Hertfordshire Town and Parish Councils, HAPTA. I know they do have a training programme. I know that not all parish and town councils are members, but I think it is very important that that association is also involved in ensuring that the councillors who do come under their orbit are very well trained in what is appropriate behaviour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Councillor Curtis, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add, as a member of the executive committee of HAPTC, Hertfordshire Association of Parish and Town Councils, that I'm happy to feed back what the leader has quite rightly just suggested, that we try and engage our member councils in that training.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Are there any other comments from any members? No? Okay, thank you. So members, there are two recommendations, A and B, on pages 182 and 183 of the agenda pack. The recommendations are to consider comments from the Standards Committee and the independent person as shown at Appendix A and endorse the recommended actions shown. And recommendation B is to adopt the revised councillor complaints handling procedure as recommended by recommendation A contained at Appendix B. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you're in favour of these recommendations? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Are there any against and any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous. That was carried. Thank you very much, members. Next item is motions on notice. There are no motions that have been submitted. So members, that concludes tonight's business. I declare this meeting closed at 20 to 9.